Hi, Melissa Leach.
Hi. How's it going?
So good. Hey, thanks for coming back to our podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited.
You're going to be a regular character here since you're a pretty important piece of the puzzle. Are you okay with that? I would like to get your consent now in the public arena.
It makes me so happy. Nothing makes me happier.
So everyone that's listening, Melissa is joining us today to talk about chair pose. We will be doing asana breakdown segments, which is pretty cool. Hopefully you guys find them useful. So chair pose or utkatasana, which it actually means fierce pose, but it's okay. We'll call it chair pose for today's purposes. Do you like chair pose, Melissa?
No, and I never feel fierce in it. I feel awkward and uncomfortable usually.
Yeah. I wouldn't say fierce is the descriptor I would use how I feel either.
Yeah, and that'd
What
be an
would you,
interesting poll.
yeah, that we should. Let's do a poll. Let's do a poll. Let's like dive right in
Mhm.
because I think chair pose is one that grinds both of our gears a little bit as far as the way it shows up in classes and the way teachers teach it. So hopefully people can learn a thing or two here. But what would you say out of the many things you can say about chair pose are sort of the most common misunderstandings or outdated cues that you constantly hear?
I think for outdated cues, I'm going to start at the ground and go up. It's like bring your feet together or big toes to touch, heels an inch apart. The other cue is gonna be, like, targeted at the middle of the body where people are like, "Sit deeper," and it comes from a great place, like,
Yeah.
especially because this is one that shows up in a lot of power vinyasa classes, and so it's like we're looking for intensity and we're here to build challenges, so it's like, sit deeper in order to make it harder, and, like, we hold people there and we're like, "Yeah, feel that." And
Yeah.
then
Feel that burn because you're sitting deeper.
oh, no, better yet, feel that tapas.
Yeah.
Or sit into the tapas. It's kinda like so and then the third one, this is gonna go top of the pose, is, like, bring your biceps by your ears. So those are the 3 that, like, probably lead to why I feel awkward and uncomfortable in that pose because 'cause I'm trying to do
Yeah.
all of them, and none of them are
Uh-huh.
happening.
Yeah. 100%. So, what we're going to do, I guess, for the next couple minutes is reframe a bunch of those cues, right? Like give another way for people to sort of look at them or shift some information around to give people a better way to look at chair pose. So, what are the like two top things from what you just said out of those cues that are creating potentially the most confusion or harm when for a student that's in like a group class setting?
I think the top 2 are going to be for me, and I would love because you and I sometimes will pick different cues.
Yeah.
For me, it's sit deeper and biceps by your ears. Those are
Yeah.
actually pretty connected. I can work around, bring your feet together. But when we take a look at chair pose, it's actually a pretty functional movement pattern when we take a look at how the body's meant to move. It's crossing into, you know, the area of a squat.
Yeah.
And I think when you recognizing the different things that can limit us being able to descend into that position starts down at the feet, starts down at the ankle. But just constantly cueing. So if you set someone up the right in a functional way, I'm sorry, I corrected myself because like right or wrong is very individual. It's
Yeah.
very individual into the body. And so if we're looking for right or wrong in our students' bodies, it limits what we can do as teacher. But as a functional movement pattern, it's a pretty amazing pose. And just constantly cueing sit deeper is trying to maybe put them into a position that their body doesn't want to go in and therefore
Mhm.
limiting your access to creating challenge and creating the heat that you actually want to do in a power yoga pose.
I love that answer. So, could we dive like into some specifics as far as like if you were to say something like sit deeper, what is specifically happening in those traditional alignment cues that creates limitation for people? Like I'm thinking about like sitting deeper could be if somebody is challenged in their ankle mobility, like that's not an option for them. Can you sort of like touch on that with like these traditional cues where it's like sit deeper or biceps by your ears, like where that becomes problematic.
Well, for both of them, you hit pretty powerfully on it. If you have limited ankle mobility, then your ability to sit deeper gets limited by what's happening in your ankle. Then if you move up the chain into the hip socket, let's say it's structural. And when I say structural, I don't mean like, oh, keep stretching it out and eventually you'll get there. I mean
Yeah.
like bone on bone, like how the head of the femur sits into the socket, the depth of the socket, the angle. Like there's a lot of anatomical things that could actually be limiting someone. Could it also be muscle tightness? Sure. Could it be in the fascia? Also, yes. So all of those areas could be limiting someone's ability, well, maybe availability too.
Availability, that could work too.
But then and they all, and this is the thing, is it's hard to also isolate like the specific joint that could be problematic because we tend to want to do that in yoga. But
Mhm.
when you dive into anatomy and movement patterns, everything's actually related. So let's say you have limited ankle mobility. Chances are your knee or your hip is going to try to compensate. Let's say you're limited in hip mobility. Then that is going to affect the fascia that goes up the back, the posterior chain of the body, which is going to limit your ability to actually bring your biceps by your ears. As you bring your biceps, try to get your biceps by your ears. So for those of us who are pretty tight in the upper back, me being one of them,
Yeah,
if
same.
you're, yeah, if
It's
I'm
like
trying to,
torture for me.
it is because this, even with one arm, is already starting to feel very uncomfortable. And then what happens is in order for me, my arms to come up and bring my biceps by my ears, my rib cage is having to flare out. I'm having to go with a pretty severe arch in my low back, which is going to impact my ability to sit deeper and vice versa. So like,
Right,
which is coming first, chicken or the egg?
right. 100%.
And those two cues will tend to get stacked. And then your student gets frustrated. And then the result is, what am I doing wrong? And it's like the
100%.
student's not wrong. The student's not the one that's wrong.
No.
It's the cues that's now like we're creating this full circle. It's the
Mhm.
cues that are creating confusion or even frustration in your student. And now there then there's like, I hate chair pose.
Yeah, and it's like, I hate chair pose, right? Or I can't do yoga.
I can't do
I
yoga.
can't do yoga. Yeah, I mean, that's, like, the most common thing I hear. It's like, "Oh, yeah, I can't do yoga, like, I'm not X, Y, or Z," and it's like, actually, it's probably just, like, some cues you've heard over time that are not great. I love this so much. I had a teacher recently because I will not put my arms over my head in chair pose just for a variety of different reasons, for, like, specific things about my body. Either I bring my arms behind me or I bring my hands to heart center or something like that. And I will bring my arms overhead and then like bring them down. And I've had teachers say things like look at me and say things like, I know that it's hard to hold your arms overhead, but like if you keep practicing, it gets easier.
Does it though? I would challenge that.
Right. And also like I don't know, that's like not the point. That's just not the point for me.
Oh
Yeah.
man, can
Okay.
we put a
So
pin in that one and do that as a
yeah, yeah,
podcast?
yeah, that's for a whole different episode. But I do think I think the cue, like, sit deeper comes from a place where, like, the intention just comes out the wrong way, like, they're trying to produce something in the pose. I think biceps by your ears comes from a place of they don't know what else to say, and that's what they learned in a script, and they just, like, think that they have to follow the alignment rules. So, if we're talking about let's, like, separate them, but if we're talking about sitting deeper with that, in my mind, the teacher is trying to create tapas or like create some heat in this person's body or create flow for that student. How can we use language? Like, what language and cues can we use instead to give people some of what we're looking for and also giving them some autonomy and agency in their practice as well?
I love this question so much. It's create muscle action in the body.
Right.
And I don't mean sit, yes, sitting deeper is creating muscle action, but you're leaving certain people out. So your job, I think, as teacher, it requires you to dig pretty deep into movement patterns and anatomy. But like, what are the cues that you can give your students that capture everybody and give everybody something to do? Like, what happens in chair pose if you push your feet down into the floor and then try to drag your heels out to the sides of the mat and then you bend your knees just a little bit deeper, right?
Yes.
So is that coming from the knees or the hip crease? They get to
Right.
decide.
They get to
Then
decide.
so you're doing a couple things. Everyone there got are is you allow them to develop the agency of how much deeper that's going to look like depending on
Mhm.
their range of motion. And it also like it gives everybody, if you don't want to sit deeper, it gives everybody something to do in terms of a
Yep.
muscle action.
100%.
So I think it's, that's the, and then it goes back to a why. Like, why do you want their biceps by their ears?
Right.
Because then
Right.
the follow-up cue typically is like, relax your shoulders, bring your
Relax your
shoulders away. Well,
shoulders.
you just put them there,
Yeah.
teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, now you have to backtrack.
You're
You're
right.
backtracking. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
student's like, I'm doing something wrong. Like, no, that actually is over there with
No,
the
you're
teacher.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. How can teachers reapproach that as well, where it's like, where are some other smoother ways we can go other than just saying, bring your biceps by your ears?
What Why, like, so if our arms are up overhead, whether it's chair pose, and that's going to extend to a lot of different poses where your arms are up overhead. Yeah,
Mhm.
you want your arms up overhead, but do they need to be by your ears? What
Right.
happens if you are about, what are you trying to create in that pose? If it's a fierce pose and it's a powerful pose, there also has to be freedom of movement. So
Mhm.
you may have to allow those of us with tight shoulders, maybe we go a little bit wider. Maybe our biceps are not by our ears. Maybe your hands reach up overhead, but then you start to cue, the muscles that create that action. That requires you to learn a little bit of anatomy and then have people hugging into center. Then that's kind of a fierce movement because you've got a lot of isometric contraction versus just relying on, like, yes, you
Yeah.
have muscle contraction there, but you're relying on being able to achieve a certain look.
Willpower.
Yeah, versus if you hug in and that. Sorry, I was just thinking about, we're coming off of a training weekend where we were playing with arms up overhead, and we had a couple people where we didn't cue the biceps by your ears or hands by your head. We cued shoulders, and the access to a completely different experience in the pose. Like, do you remember that moment?
Oh,
Like,
it's so good. The whole room was like, when I use those cues instead, I'm basically like here, and this feels so good. For those people listening, it like took their arms very wide apart, and they felt stable and open and free, and it was a beautiful beautiful thing to see.
and, like, we did kind of a comparison, and because this was in a teaching container. It wasn't a
Yeah,
part of
yeah,
a flow class where we were
right.
able to, like, "Okay, everybody look, here's here's chair with your
Mhm.
hands by your typical cue. Now try." So we got to see, and then it's like, "Which chair would you like to be in?" And everybody
Right,
picked, the one where the
exactly.
person looked like they were actually enjoying themselves in chair
Right,
while working
right.
hard. No one was without effort in that room.
Not even a little, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
that's so good. That exercise actually reminded me a little bit of like even it's just like I know that it's a like your arms are different, but it's not a totally different concept where like in locust where people instead they squeeze their arms towards each other behind their back rather than keeping them further apart and then like just what happens in the pose and in their face and in their shoulders and like you can visually see the shift. And it's very very cool.
Mhm.
So this might seem like a silly question, or at least it's funny. It seems silly to me to ask it, but I'm going to do it for the sake of our listeners. Where does this pose best fit into a sequence, and why? Chair pose.
Nowhere. It fits nowhere.
It fits nowhere. It's so funny. I just made a post about this. I'm like, everybody stop talking shit on chair pose. It's a squat and I love it. Like, but I'm probably an outlier there. I'm like, just chair pose all day. Like, just give me 3 sets of chair poses and then let's call it a day. And I'm not putting my arms overhead. Leave me alone.
Yeah, so with this one nuance. I think chair is one of those versatile poses that actually fits pretty well in the front half. Don't put it in the back half of the sequence. And I've been in
Yeah.
that class. I have been in those classes where, like, it's warrior 2 and then 2 poses later you're in shavasana. It's like,
Uh-huh.
no, that's not where that pose actually belongs.
Hmm.
Energetically, it's when you're taking people up the hill where you are building
Yes.
momentum. And so I think it's pretty versatile. It's neutral hip, so you don't have to worry about internal versus external rotation. Like, you can use it. I think it's pretty versatile. It shows up obviously in your sun salutations as part of a dynamic warm up. It can fit very nicely as you're starting to build heat and build people to someone. There's a lot of different things that you can land in chair when you do it intentionally and teach it well. So I think that would be my where I would put within a sequence is really before you come down the back end of the bell curve before
Yeah.
you move
Yeah.
into like back end. I don't think I would put it right before I dropped you into back ends, but it definitely can show up in the front half as you're working your way up the mountain.
Up to the arc, to the top of the arc of the class. Yeah. Yeah. This is kind of a cool question. So when people start teaching this way, I mean, this is a big question. So,
Oh God.
and this is sort of like what our teacher training encompasses, right? But when they start teaching this way, what happens for teachers that shifts? So, I guess what I'm saying is when you move away from old school alignment cueing and into a way of cueing and teaching that creates autonomy for the students, what changes for the teacher in a positive way?
I think you get to be well, first thing that happens is you start to see the people in your class. You don't
Amen,
see
sister.
a class, you see the dynamic, miraculous individuals that have showed up
Mhm.
in front of you, whether it's one person, whether it's 25, whether it's 100 people.
Yep.
And that's mind blowing, right? When you step into a
Oh,
room
so
of like
good.
75 people and you're like, I have 75 individuals in here who all have
Mhm.
very different bodies.
Yep.
Not all of them. The universal cue of bring your biceps by your ears is going to serve maybe three of them.
Yeah.
And so it allows you to shift into a space where nothing's right or wrong and everything is possible, right? Like
Yeah.
in that space of nothingness, that space of clarity, all things are possible. But in the realm of aesthetic cueing, in that limited, like, I've got to fit these people into this pose. Very few things become possible.
Yeah. 100%. Oh, it's so good.
I think
That
that's
gave
the
me
fun
some
part of teaching.
I know, right? That just gave me, like, goosebumps. And I mean, I don't know. That's yoga, right?
Well, that's the thing is then all of your students, 100% of your students in the room, whatever injuries they're walking in with, whatever like weight they're carrying with them, whatever their perceived limitations are, they get to decide if they want to leave those by the door
Mhm.
or if they like that's how you truly allow someone to develop their own practice.
Right. Instead of telling them how they should feel and what they should do.
Yeah, and you can accommodate every single person, injury,
Yeah.
non-injury.
Yeah, and it's so cool because that becomes true through language, just through
Mhm.
language. Is there anything else that you wanna say about share pose?
Other than how much I hate it. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, it's one of those, I think when we take a look, some people will take a look at poses like, if you can do this, then you should be able to do this. So extended side angle, right? Extended side
Ah,
angle, half bind, full bind. Like that's
mhm.
the natural progression. I think rather than seeing poses like that, seeing as almost like risk versus reward, right?
Yeah,
And chair pose is a pretty low risk pose.
yeah,
Like if you fall out of chair pose, you're probably going to be okay. I'm not even if you have the mobility to bring your hips all the way down to your heels when you're sitting deeper, you're probably going to be okay. Because like think about chair. Like if you sit on the toilet, you do chair pose. If
right.
you like loving squats, like love squat, you probably enjoy a good solid chair pose. So I think seeing it in that way should free you up because I think a lot of
Yeah,
teachers from a really well-intentioned place, they worry about hurting their students. And then
mhm,
that's where they lean into these old school alignment cues that make the teacher feel safe because it makes the teacher feel like they're keeping their students safe. And the
yeah,
good and bad news is that's actually not the way to keep your students safe.
right.
But chair pose is one of those where, like, if you want to start to experiment with this style of teaching, that's kind of a low
Right,
risk, high
yeah,
reward
yeah.
pose.
Good
So
place to
play with
start.
it there.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good, that's so good. Okay, I have one last chair pose question, and I mean, it's the last question, so it's the most important question as well. Are you ready? If chair pose was a person, who would it be?
Oh my god. The one that is actually coming to mind right now because of actually how I feel in it, if you've seen it's Guardians of the Galaxy. I Groot. I am Groot.
Groot.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is it? It's like something love Groot.
Yeah, no, it's literally I am Groot. Like, it's
I'm
always
Groot.
and
Yeah,
he moves around like a big tree. That's
uh, yeah. Okay, YTTs, if you're listening, we fully expect a chair pose Groot theme class.
wait, but now you tell me, who do you think?
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
You know what? That's it. Solid. Is well, okay, so, like, I think we're seeing a theme here. Like
Dwayne
a
The Rock Johnson,
Vin Diesel quality or a Jay in the Rock Johnson
right?
quality.
Yeah. Dwayne could also be Groot,
Oh, totally.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. They're, like,
Okay,
interchangeable,
well,
even though they hate
thank you
each
for
other.
being here and talking about chair pose with me.
Thank you for having me. Loved it. So fun.
Yeah. I'll see you next time.
See you next time.
See you next time.